Hey, Dad. Discipline isn't just about correcting behavior. It's about shaping who your child becomes. If you want to raise kids with a strong character and real world responsibility, stick around because today we're diving into three powerful, proven techniques from Parenting by the Book by John Rosemond and everything that you need to know. Let's jump straight into it. Number one, you want to focus on discipline by focusing on the heart, not just behavior. This isn't just about controlling the outward behavior, but it's about shaping your child's inner character. The goal is to raise kids who make good decisions because they want to, not just because they fear the consequences. So, what's a good example of this? Let's say that your child is caught lying about homework. Instead of just punishing the lie, have a calm conversation about integrity. You could say things like, when you tell the truth, even when it's hard, you build trust and you show strength and character. That's who you want to be. So, really going to the heart of who your kid is, knowing how to pull those little strings to make them really feel the need to be better and do better, that will absolutely help out when you're working to discipline your kiddo. And John Rosemond talks about this all the time, in particular about being a little bit tougher, but using some of those different techniques. The second technique that we're talking about in particular is to use natural consequences over punishments. So what in particular does that mean? Well, Rosemond recommends that you let natural consequences teach lessons whenever possible. So this approach helps kids connect their actions to real life outcomes, and it fosters that responsibility. So let's say that, for example, your child forgets their lunch at school. So instead of rushing over to save your kid, save the day, let them experience the discomfort of missing out on that lunch and have them come home to really explain, now that they've had that visceral appreciation for what went wrong, what they need to do in the future in order to fix that problem. If they experience the real life consequences like you and I do when we do things during the day, we will learn those lessons a lot faster. So don't save your kids. Don't go out and fix all of their problems because it absolutely doesn't help them in the long run. John Rosemond talks a lot about this in his book, in particular because he says parenting by the book, the Bible, was the way to do it. And we've gotten away from that as dads and as mothers and fathers, primarily because life has just gotten so crazy. Back when John Rosemond was growing up, his mother wouldn't allow him to do a lot of these different things. She made him grow up, do the hard things on his own, and learn those lessons the hard way. And that's something that you and I, Dad, can really get back to. So that brings me to number three. Be calm, confident, and consistent. Discipline works best when the parents remain calm, avoid emotional outbursts, and enforce rules consistently. Kids thrive on that predictability. This is damn hard. I feel your pain. I go through it all the time with my three kiddos. I've got a 9-year-old, I've got a 6-year-old, and I've got a 3-year-old. They drive me absolutely insane sometimes. They make me want to scream and raise my voice. But it's difficult to do that and to get them to actually pay attention. If you can approach them in a calm, confident fashion, they will absolutely start to respond, especially if you get down to their level and you focus on the things that they need to talk about and think about. One thing when I'm really feeling like I'm going to get ready to explode and scream, I use this technique. It's called First Just Breathe. And it's something that really helps to get yourself in the present moment, but more importantly, it helps to lower your pulse, lower your blood pressure, and lower the anxiety that you're feeling in talking with your kids. So it works like this. First, if you are ever in a position where you are really stressed out, if you look down at your fists, they're completely balled up, they're really tight. That's an unconscious harborer of stress and of anxiety. So if you can physically relax your fists, that will immediately start to release some of that anxiety, some of that stress in your system. J stands for jaw. So if your jaw is super duper tight, you hold a lot of stress in your jaw. So if you can physically acknowledge that your jaw is really tight, you're holding that stress, and drop your jaw or your chin straight to the floor like this, that will immediately, you'll feel it if you do it with me right now, release some of that stress. And then finally, one mindful deep breath. So release your fist, first just breathe. Release your jaw, and one mindful deep breath. If you do that with me right now, you'll feel an immediate relaxation throughout your body. Your pulse will drop, your blood pressure will drop, and your amygdala hijack, what's causing you to want to scream at your kids, will start to go away. So do that, approach them in a calm, confident fashion, and that will absolutely help as you're moving forward to work on that discipline with your kiddo, especially getting down to their level. And then finally, I got a bonus for you. The bonus tip is discipline technique. It is encouraging ownership of your mistakes. Now, ownership of your mistakes is really important, right? But teach your kids to take responsibility for their actions rather than making excuses or shifting blame. This builds accountability and strengthens their moral compass. So here's a good example, right? If your child accidentally breaks the neighbor's flower pot, involve them in the solution. Help them to apologize directly to the neighbor and suggest a way to make it right, like helping out with yard work or using allowance money to replace the pot. This reinforces the mistake and are part of life, but taking that responsibility shows the maturity and the character. So have them take responsibility for that mistake. Now, I know these are pretty quick tips. I use these all the time with my kiddos, my middle kiddo in particular, Callan. Sticking with the punishment, Dad, is super hard. If you commit to a punishment, that is going to be one of the most difficult things, especially if you really love that kiddo. One of the biggest challenges that I had was Callan when he all out socked his brother straight in the back when he got frustrated one day. I watched it happen. I immediately pulled him upstairs thinking, what am I going to do? At this point, I thought, you know what? I'm going to ground him. He's 4 at this point, so I'm not going to ground him for long, but I locked him in his room, found out immediately that was absolutely the right decision because he hated to be locked into his room. Screamed, cried, moaned, but I stuck to it. I didn't go in there until he was calmed down. And that was my ability to say, all right, if you do this, you are going to get this punishment immediately. And that's another good point too. A lot of people say, well, don't punish your kids later on because the punishment won't be proximal to the crime that they committed. But that's simply not the case. Kids, especially as they get a little bit older, will have an appreciation for this punishment will be coming, and it can come a little bit later in the day, right? So a perfect example, just last week, again, Callan, my middle kiddo, was watching a show when I had already told him not to. I had told him to turn it off, but he turned it on anyway. I said, all right, your consequence is no dessert tonight when your brother and sister get to have some. And we had made homemade ice cream that night, and he didn't get to have it. It was 4 hours later, but he still knew ahead of time that he was not getting that dessert. He knew that he was not going to have any of that fun because he had a consequence coming. And it was all the more poignant for him to have a really appreciation for not doing that again in the future. So some things to think about. Most importantly, though, taking care of yourself, Dad, is the best tip of all. Luckily, I made a short video about how to do that in just 20 minutes a day, 3 days a week. You can check out that video right here. And thanks for joining me. Subscribe if you like this stuff. We have a community of dads. We talk about how to be better dads, how to be better husbands, how to make more, do more, win the day for our kids. Have a good day. Appreciate you. Thanks.